There we go. Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. I am extremely excited about my next guest, the one and only Maz. I'm going to fuck up your name. I should have asked in the intro. Mazbou Q. Is that how you do it?
Almost Mazbou.
Mazbou.
Yeah,
I
Mazbou.
knew, I said to myself before we started recording, all right, Aaron, make sure you ask how to pronounce the name. And I didn't end up doing it, but Mazbou Q has come through, the one and only, the rap scientist. You might have seen him on TikTok. That's how I personally found him. And then I went through this massive rabbit hole of just going, oh shit, as a fan of hip hop, it turns out there is so much that I don't really understand about sequencing bars in terms of catching flows. And man, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. You also have a single that came out, Wait on My Bars, Part 6. So
Yeah.
doing it all, it seems.
Yeah, look, I'm trying to make everything work, man. What I've been telling a lot of people who have been asking me about, like, how are you moving forward as an artist, is that we just have to be thinking a bit more laterally now with our art. It's not just record your music, play shows, and make a living that way. You have to be thinking sideways. You know what I'm saying? What are the other things that you can be doing to support yourselves? And especially now that the landscape is changed for artists, especially independent artists, we have to be social media people now. You know what I'm saying? There's no escaping it. There was a little bit of room for resistance at the start, but now you just have to be part of the machine. So yeah, I'm totally leaning into the whole TikTok and Instagram thing, and I mean it's working. So yeah.
Isn't it weird though that like when you start this journey as an artist, you're like, all right, all I got to do is I'm got to make dope music. I got to make fire music, and I got to do some promo. And now it feels like the independent artist has to be an entrepreneur. Like they have to survive by finding
Absolutely.
new ways.
Absolutely. Well, interestingly enough, I think we've always had to be entrepreneurs. It's just that the way in which we need to be entrepreneurs has changed. And basically, again, the conversations I've been having is around what is the product. So if you go back 10 or 20 years, what was the product? The product was, well, I'm going to sell a CD, sell a tape. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write music, I'm going to play a show, I'm going to sell merch. These things are going to advertise my music. So hopefully people are going to buy my music, and then purchasing my music is going to fund my career. That's the whole point. And if you manage to sell enough, you support yourself, you hopefully make the label happy if you've got a label, and so on and so forth. Um, how did that work? Well, if someone liked one of your songs, two of your songs, they had to buy your CD. And that CD was like $20. Yeah. So they're paying you $20 just to listen to one of your songs or two of your songs like once. But now that streaming is how you do things. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you like one of my songs, two of my songs, and you want to play it once and you're done with it, maybe twice, I get what, a fraction of a cent. So now music is no longer the product. Um, for a while, it was live shows. People realized that, okay, with streaming, we couldn't sell our music. It's not our music that's for sale. It's something else. Our music is being used to advertise something else. So we were advertising our live shows for a while. Okay, we make the record, we make the album, we put it out there, we get the streams, tell people to come to the show, come on tour. We make music that way, sell tickets, sell merch. But then COVID happened, you know what I'm saying? And then live shows went away. And even though COVID's like basically over, I mean, that's a controversial statement, but
For
for
me, it's over.
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So but the live scene hasn't fully recovered from that. It hasn't fully recovered. I mean, it's going again, but it hasn't fully recovered. So artists are realizing, well, we can't. Shows isn't the thing anymore. So what's the product now? And that's the hard thing for artists to figure out. I personally think we as artists need to think more expansively than just being artists. We need to just lean into the fact that we are content creators now, because we live in a content creating world. We live in a world of content consumption. Everything is content now, whether you like it or not. So, and I'll be the first one to say, look, man, like I was pushing back on that so hard. Like I was late to TikTok. I was late. I was late to every new thing. I was stuck on MySpace for a long time. Ask my friends around 2008. Everyone started getting on Facebook. They're like, Mazbou, you need to get on this Facebook thing. I was like, well, what are you talking about? MySpace gonna last forever, bro. It did not last forever. I think pretty sure it died the next year. You know what I'm saying? So and same with Instagram. People are like, yo, Instagram's the next thing. I was like, and what, posting photos? What's that got to do with anything? But then lo and behold, it became something much bigger than that. So I learned from my mistakes. And I was like, you know what? Now I'm just gonna embrace these changes and evolve with how things are evolving. And yeah, like I said, it's been working.
It is weird because I'm going to have to start saying I don't interview artists, I interview content creators. And it just changes. It's weird how even that in my own head, you just think I interview YouTube stars, but I think you're right that
Yeah.
everyone is a content creator. Like,
Man, we're content creators, man. We're content creators. Like, and what's really interesting is how music has changed its function in society. So, and this is tied to how music is being consumed now. So again, we go back 20 years when you had to buy a CD or you had to buy a tape or whatever. Music listening was an experience in of itself. You bought your CD, put it in your Walkman or your car stereo or whatever, and you're like, I'm gonna listen to this album. I've been waiting for this album. I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna chill out and I'm gonna listen. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people still do that, but mostly that's not how music is consumed anymore because most of what we're doing is this scrolling through content, visual content, like memes. And I don't mean like necessarily like the meme pictures, but general memology, like just communicating different concepts through short form video, through like gifs, through pictures and all this kind of stuff. We're very like visual thing that's going on now. So music has changed its function in that it is now supporting a visual medium. How is your music a soundtrack for a message that someone wants to get across? How is your music a soundtrack for someone's life? And how is it going to support like a meme, essentially? Memeable music is the music that's really taking off right now. I mean, you look at Central C, look at Ice Spice, you look at all the people who are actually killing it right now. Their music essentially is just giant memes, right? So and like for the people who don't want to really go all that far, and I'm one of them, I don't want my music to be a meme, but I'm still thinking, okay, the way I produce music, the way I communicate things has to change a little bit. And I have to have in mind who's gonna play my music and be like, oh, yo, this communicates something in my life that I want to share with other people through these mediums. And that's how the music's gonna get out there. That's how it is. So for people who don't want to jump on that, cool, you don't have to, but just be aware that you're not gonna get as far as you might have gotten 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
well, the other thing is that music feels like a way to distract or make other menial tasks better. So, like, we were talking off mic, you were in the car driving. A lot of people just listen to music in the car or while they're cooking or like while they're doing something else to make that activity less boring.
Yep.
As opposed to, as you said, I'm going to actively sit down or I'm going to actively just listen and focus on the music.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's significantly changed because I go to shows now and it feels like most people are like, I have no idea half these songs because I don't actively listen. They're just on and I like the feeling that I get while I'm doing something else.
Yeah. And that is compounded by, and I saw a really interesting conversation on Twitter about essentially the death of the superstar. And it's actually something I've been sort of theorizing away in my head for a long time now, because again, we have to go, like, honestly, all this stuff makes sense when you go back 10, 20 years ago. When you look at how artists were pushed out there, how you even found artists, like you're watching C4. I mean, that's a New Zealand thing, but okay, you're watching NTV, you might be reading the Source magazine, the Vibe magazine, you might be watching E-News channel. There are like very big centralized media outlets that essentially tell you who was popping. This is the artist that's big right now. There are a few channels by which you consume and you find out who's doing stuff. But now with social media 2.0 and 3.0, that platforms have been so radically democratized to the point that you can be a complete nobody and have a billion people viewing your stuff. You know what I'm saying? So many people have their own platforms that are comparable to media that you don't have a centralized media anymore. Your media is completely decentralized. Platforms are decentralized. So who was big? Who was big? Whoever, like, there are people that can be absolutely massive that you never, like, okay, Bad Bunny, for example. Like, no one, let's be honest, okay, in the last year or so, Bad Bunny has traversed some kind of bridge, and now everyone is realizing who he is. But if you talk to, like, his world has known who he is for a long time. Because we were having this conversation like, who's the biggest artist in the world? Wait, who's this guy called Bad Bunny who's selling out stadiums? What? Right? You know what I'm saying? And then we realized, oh wow, you can actually be massive and people cannot know who you are. If Bad Bunny was doing those numbers 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, every single person on the planet will know who he is. You know what I'm saying? But now you can be a megastar and no one knows, a megastar, no one knows who you are. And that's wild. It's awesome, and it's both. It's a weird thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's all to say that yeah, music is, the landscape's just so different now. You know, it's so different, and we have to operate in this newness. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is really weird that you say that, because like I think about who the super, like, quote unquote superstars, and I agree the death of the superstar is 100% real. I think of it in movies as well, like the death of like the A-list celebrity actor. Now it just feels like just people who do shit movies and who are out there all the time. Like, you know, you're not like, you're not like, I want to be this person, or this person is genuine, like A-list shock. When I look at you, I cannot speak. It feels like everyone's, as you said, kind of in meme movies. Like they're not in real movies anymore. They're in just generic kind of story, just make millions.
Well, that's the thing. Like, whoever is massive now, like, going back to music, like the Drakes and the Beyoncés and those, they came up in the old. You know, they came out in the old. You know, there's no one who's come up in the new sort of, in this new world, who's on that level, and they're probably never going to get there. You know, you've got Lizzo, who's big-ish, but again, I can go down the road and ask somebody, can you sing me a Lizzo song? Chances are that most people aren't going to be able to do it. You know, a lot of people who are really, like, especially the younger people, they'll be able to do it. But a lot of people sort of our age, sing me a Doja Cat song. A lot of people are going to be like, first of all, who is Doja Cat? You know? So for the people who are sort of in the world, we're like, oh, Doja Cat's massive, but is she really massive? Because I promise you, I can go to any single country, any single neighborhood, any single village, anywhere, and be like, sing me a Michael Jackson song. They will sing you almost lyrically perfect the whole song. Like, Michael Jackson's level of fame is different. So when people are talking about, oh yeah, you know, Drake's almost on that level, no, he is not. No, he is not. There is no one who's going to be anywhere near. Because I can go to my great auntie's house in Nigeria, where she doesn't have consistent power and water. You know what I'm saying? In the depths of the village, and she will sing me Michael Jackson. That's never gonna happen again. People need to understand that's never happening again. So the megastar, the superstar is dead. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. We don't need them. Like we don't need these people who, like, we basically worship. Like, I don't know why that has to happen like that. But it's definitely a real thing. And like you say, with actors too, the sort of Brad Pitt, the George Clooney level people, the Denzel level people, then that's not going to be repeated again. Just because
now it's The Rock. Now it's The Rock. Who,
that's right. Yeah,
everyone knows, but no one's like, he's a good actor. He's just
exactly. And again, he came up in that old world anyway. He came up because of WWF, WWE, right? That was, you know, so all the people who are massive now, who are really massive now, they came up in the old world, and it's a weird thing, but that's how it is.
Yeah, they're almost in a weird way legacy artists. Like, they have a long legacy. They've built their name in. It's almost like, in a weird way, being a millionaire now is not the same as being a millionaire in the 1950s. It's like, it's all amplified. So it's like, in the weirdest way, the economy changed. And so the economy of music and the economy of fame changed with social media. And in a weird way, as you were speaking, I was like, you might be right that it is better that way. Like, it's better because it makes it easier to get as any person, but it also makes it bad because it's like, you don't have that same, like, idealistic of like, that's the vision of what I could be. So it's like this goes hand in hand, but it does open the door for people like you and for people who are taking risks and creating good content without spending millions of dollars to get out there and the public to essentially decide, instead of massive machines to be like, you know what, we're going to quieten this and we're going to promote this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing about the old world was that like you had to like none of those guys who were megastars were independent. You know what I'm saying? The idea of a megastar who's independent is would have been outrageous like 20, 30 years ago. Absolutely outrageous. Because how do you get your, social media wasn't really a thing back then. So how do you even get your stuff out there? You didn't, unless you had the news, the radio, or the big media outlets with you, which you couldn't without labels who had those connects, and you couldn't. But now, yeah, there is a way up for even the most indie, like the person in their bedroom. First of all, you can download Logic for $300, or you can download like free music making tools like BandLab. Bro, do you know what BandLab is? I learned of BandLab only last year. It's literally like an online version of Logic, and it's legit. Like people be making real music off that. And I go into schools because I do a lot of mentoring in schools. And I go into schools and they're like, yeah, man, we're using BandLab. We're using BandLab. I'm like, what's this BandLab? They show me, and people making hella beats, people making like tunes off this. And I'm like, yo, if I had this in school, oh my gosh, what? So people like you can log on, literally open Google Chrome and make music. Now that is madness. That is madness. Before you used to have to spend thousands to get in the studio. You know what I'm saying? And most people didn't have those thousands, so you used to have to get signed. And who gets signed? One out of every 100,000 people. You know what I'm saying? Like, so even it's this weird. I guess it's almost an irony, right? Like, so even though we don't have these shining lights to aspire to anymore, back when we did, it was impossibly hard to get to them.
Yeah.
But now we have access to that kind of stardom. But we're just a little less focused with our aims. But that's okay. Like I feel like people can start making it in their own way, which is like what I'm sort of trying to do. Like really forging their own path. Like this, it's less like, oh, I need to sell these records. I need to get that Grammy. I need to do this tour. Like I'm like, oh, I can make it in my own way. If I can like if I can teach people how to rap, if I can like export that to schools and colleges, and be this kind of guru of rap, then shit, if that's what makes me successful, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? That's cool. I'm gonna lean into that. And yeah.
I think you should. Well, I think as in like I had this discussion with one of my friends. He's also a content creator. He's a YouTuber and TikToker. And we had this discussion of like, you should lean into it. If you find the fire, people have this habit of like, oh no, that doesn't go with what I self-identify as, in the sense of I had this image of being this type of musician or this type of content creator. But then the audience are telling them, no, stick to your niche, which should be XYZ. And you need to lean into it and listen, because ultimately they're the people who continue to support you and buy the products that you ultimately sell.
Yeah. No, look, I had several huge moments of reckoning for me when I had to, like, there was a big point where I had to be like, look, if I don't make it as a rapper, I need to be okay with that. Because for the longest time, I was holding tightly on to the old image. I'm going to be a rapper. I'm going to sell these records. I'm going to do these collabs. I'm going to get that Grammy. Holding on very tight. And this was around the time where the rap science stuff started to really take off. But I was keeping it at bay because I'm like, I like it. It's good that it's getting me some attention. But if it's not getting me the right kind of attention, if it's not getting me the attention of, oh, those guys are cool rapper, then I'm gonna keep it at bay. But something changed. Something in my mind was like, yo, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not embracing this? You know what I'm saying? Because and I had to realize that not everyone, like the people you look at as ultra successful, not all of them started out thinking that was what they're going to do. Like a lot of these people at the top who were singers came up as rappers, or a lot of the people who are rappers came up, there are a lot of people who are just doing something different to what they thought they were going to do. You know what I'm saying? I don't know the story of people like Pharrell, but did he imagine himself being like the one of the top producers ever, or did he have in his mind that he was going to be an artist? You know what I'm saying? Like, or is there situations where it's the other way around? Like someone came up wanting to be a producer and then just turned into an artist. Like stuff happens. So we have to be ready to pivot as well. And also like one of the big things for me, I can't speak on everyone's behalf of this, but for me, I had to really ask myself, what lifestyle do I even want? You know what I'm saying? Because I think there's a certain extent to where we're programmed to think that we want the classic lifestyle of this rock star artist. But I had to really sit down. I'm like, bro, I'm like turning 34 this year. I've got a kid. You could probably hear her in the background screaming. But I'm like, do I even want to be like touring, doing like 3-month tours? Do I want the pressure of releasing a song, then being like, oh crap, I need to release another song that's just as good, and if I don't, I'm a failure? Do I want to be opening my freaking social media and look at people talking on Twitter, being like, oh, this dude's new album suck, like his old album? Do I want to be? Do I want that? Do I want that? Like, I'm sure it comes with great stuff, but do I want that lifestyle? And I was like, I don't know if I do. Like, I'm not gonna say no to some massive record deal if it comes tomorrow necessarily, but I had to be like, what am I actually chasing and why am I chasing it? Like there's a core of what I want, and what is that? And I realized, okay, the core of what I want is that I want to be financially free and then just do what I want to do. And what I want to do is any given day, I want to wake up, I want to produce a song, sweet. Next day, I want to go hang out with some young people, teach them how to produce, cool. The next day, I want to go do a lecture at a college about rap, do that. You know, and I don't want the pressure to have to do any of that. I just want to do it when I want to do it. And that requires some, like, obviously financial things to be set in place, but I just want to do what I want to do. That's the lifestyle I want. And that's not one of a successful artist. That's something different. And so when I realized that, I was like, okay, I'm letting go of this vision to be this amazing rapper. I'm letting go of that. I'm going to take whatever comes, but I'm letting go of the pressure of having to be there. And I'm just going to continue to do what I love doing, and see my brand grow. And wherever it takes me to, that's where I'm going to go. Because without getting too like spiritual, fatalistic, or whatever, we can't kind of resist. Like, I mean, you can resist the calling as much as you want, but if it's calling you, bro, then the place that you want to go that's not in line with that calling is going to be uncomfortable the whole way. You know what I'm saying? Like the place that, like, I'm seeing now that like my whole thing is, it's like, yes, I love making music, but I love helping people. I love educating people. I love doing that. So I'm like, do I want to be an artist or do I want to be something else? You know, I had to ask myself that question. And when I when I was at peace with the answer, that's when I realized that, okay, I just need to embrace where I'm going, because I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna end up there. As long as I keep working hard, I'm gonna end up where I'm supposed to end up.
You know, it's funny. This show genuinely goes into existentialism quite a bit.
Yeah, I
Um,
imagine.
but I think it's because like we all have these beliefs and then we start to dig a little bit deeper and then all of a sudden we realize the decisions that we make. But I think the choice of yours to choose what keeps you at peace,
Yeah,
is a much smarter choice than just following the idea of excitement. And I
yeah,
think that's what it is that encapsulates us all, especially young, is like, imagine that
yeah,
life with no
yeah.
responsibilities. And that's the difference. No responsibilities. You can just go on tour for 3 months. You can just, drink all the time. You can party all the time. You can have lots of sex with random girls all the
Yeah,
time. That's
yeah.
all the money, all the fame, photos, go to all these cool events. But there's also a reason why all those people
Yes,
end their careers
yes,
lost and have zero purpose.
yes, man. Yes, like, bro, this is something I tell myself all the time. I'm like, because as much as I do want to experience the high life, I'm it's in my mind. I'm like, it's a very temporary thing. Why? Because there are only so many restaurants I can eat at, so many like fine dining restaurants I can eat at, so many hotels I can go to, so many parties I can go to, so many things I can buy before it all starts looking the same, feeling the same. Like how really how many Bugattis can you drive until you like a Bugatti is a Bugatti? You know what I'm saying? Or a sports car is a sports car. How many like stadiums can you play until you like, you know, like what? So like I have to
Like a
be
pair
like,
of shoes, like even taking a layer less, it's like,
yeah,
I want that pair of shoes. You buy it, and then you're like,
bro, that's the thing. Listen, here's the craziest thing. So when I first left my job in 2017, because I was a software engineer, I trained as a software engineer at the university. And I was doing software testing and eventually programming and being an automated tester. So I was climbing up the sort of corporate ranks. I eventually decided, you know, music is what I want to do. So I left that job. When I first left that job, I was like, my goal, I don't want to be I don't want to be famous. This is what I was telling myself. I don't want to be famous. I want to earn six figures from my music, have enough to take care of my family, and I'll be happy. Bruh, I'm there. I'm there right now. And am I happy? I'm nowhere near. Like I feel like I'm further away from where I want to be than I was when I first left my job. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm now being aware of like, bruh, there's nothing like there is no goal. You know what I'm saying? There is no goal that you can set yourself that like with. I mean, it's so tempting to be like, yeah, once I have this, I'll be happy. No, man. You need to find your peace now, and you need to figure out what lifestyle you want to live and live that now because when you get there, bro, when you get there, whatever there is, it might be nice for a time, but unless you unless you have this deep-seated purpose that's really driving you, then that stuff is going to be real empty. You know, like my whole like for a while, my whole thing was like, I just want a bigger space because the place we were renting, like my studio was tiny, it was cramped, it was terrible. I was like, I'll be happy with just a bigger space. I'll go to bigger space. I'm like, oh, I kind of want like a big studio now. Okay, sweet. I get that studio, then I have to pay rent. I have to worry about like actual, you know, property ownership stuff outside of the house that we bought. That's another thing. I was like, oh, I just want to buy a house. We bought a house. Okay, cool. I want a bigger house. Like, bruh, you know what I'm saying?
man, this strikes such a big chord with me because I agree with you. And I've been like that my whole life of like, all right, here's a goal, tick the box. All right, next goal. It's like
yeah,
this. It's a blessing and a curse because
yes,
not everyone is like that. And you can see
mm,
that when you meet some people. That's like, I think that's unique in the sense of if you create content or if you really are really competitive and goal driven, I think it's really difficult, but it's also like the only reason you're in the position you are right now is because of that
yeah,
trait.
because yeah, exactly. So I think the tension that we have to wrestle with, like what we're talking about is ambition, um, and what we have to, I guess, be clear in our minds is there's nothing wrong with being ambitious. Um, the challenge for us is not deceiving ourselves into thinking that our happiness or our peace is going to be wound up in anything our ambition helps us achieve. Like, if we can be like, okay, so for example, if you ask me now, what do I want to be doing? I'm like, I'm literally doing it. I'm I'm doing music, I'm doing creative stuff. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Do I want to be doing it at a bigger scale? Yes. Is there a definite scale that you can point to where I'll get there and I'll be like, yep, that's all I want to do? No, no, it's not. Like because anything I achieve, I want a Grammy. Okay, I get a Grammy. Someone's got 5 Grammys. Okay, I need another one. Or I want a Billboard hit. Sweet. I've got one Billboard hit. Oh, damn, it only lasted for a week. Damn, I need a hit that lasts for 10 weeks. Oh, someone's had a Billboard hit that's been on the Billboard for like 10 years. Bro, there's no end to like, you know, there's literally nothing you can achieve that there's not more to do. So if you can somehow hold like a sort of a hungry ambition intention with being at peace wherever you are. If you can hold those two things together, I think that's chef's kiss. The problem is people let the ambition. Sorry, I'm trying to. My camera's reversed. I'm like, which hand is? If you can, if the ambition starts to outweigh the peace, you start feeling destabilized and troubled because no matter what this clinches onto, no matter what this achieves, this is never going to be. Whereas if your peace outweighs your ambition, that's arguably an okay thing, but you just have to be aware of the fact that you might not be achieving a bunch of things. Um, so yeah, this you have to get right. And I think we don't sort of talk enough about achieving the peak, especially like people who are ambitious in the whole hustle culture. There's not enough talk about like, okay, where you going to be at peace? Because I think especially the real like hustle people that are like, yeah, get up on a grind, I grind and grind. Okay, cool, but like, when are you going to stop doing that? Because you don't actually want to do that. Like, let's be honest, we don't want to be like, you're like, people glamorize the grind, but you don't want to be waking up at 5:30.
It's
If you
hard.
didn't have to,
It's
you wouldn't
hard.
do
It's tiring.
it.
It's
You
like,
don't want to be doing
yeah.
it.
But
People like, yeah, I wake up at 30, I go to the gym, and I do my 3 hour workout, and I come back and I eat like a single coffee bean. Then I'm there and I'm doing my thing. I'm like, yeah, but do you want that, bro? Like, do you want that, or are you doing that to get where you want? And where is it? Like, where is that?
yeah, I think
Yeah,
people mistake uh motivation for discipline, and that's what it is. It's like, I have the discipline to do shit I fucking hate because I want to achieve these things. But what, and it's funny, all the things you're talking about are the things that I've been thinking about recently. And
mm,
people talk about you should strive for happiness, but I have also been feeling that happiness is an emotion and is fleeting. And so with happiness comes sadness, and they
mm.
go hand in hand. But being at peace is a state of being content. And I
It's
think that should be what we promote as what you should look for in life. And that can be
yes,
on multiple scales. And so that's what I've tried to really focus on myself, is like being more at peace and being more calm and being more like, okay, let
yeah,
the ego play a little bit because I need that to progress
yeah,
my goals, but I should be striving to be at peace. But I think the interesting part is, we're talking about ourselves, and you've got a
mm,
partner, you've got a family. How does
yeah,
that play into it? And how does, a significant other also reconcile with the fact that, hey, I'm going out with you, Mazbo, and you
mm,
have this almost unrelenting ambition of like, this is something that is going to happen throughout your whole life.
mm.
How do I support that, but also try keep you level headed enough not to let it become out of control?
Yeah. So I think it's a blessing that my wife isn't ruthlessly ambitious. Because I think just like interacting with her, like she obviously has gold with her because she's a spinal rehab physiotherapist,
Well,
and she's been slowly climbing sort of the ranks within her organization. But she loves her work. You know what I'm saying? She's content at her work. And she just wants to do the best she can at her work. And that makes me like, yeah, there's something to that. One thing that I've realized is that people okay, so when we talk about like the high life, like being super wealthy and whatever, um what what I think people are wanting is they're chasing a certain lifestyle. They're not chasing the things. They're chasing the idea of not worrying about money. If I want to do something, I can do that thing. They're chasing maybe perhaps not worrying about health or whatever. So I think we have to reshape what those things look like. You know what I'm saying? Because you can have like, and that's what I mean. Like, when I used to be like, oh yeah, man, I really want to be a famous artist. No, I wanted what I believed that lifestyle would confer. Um, but then I realized it what my belief was a little bit of an illusion, and the lifestyle I want can be achieved a lot more modestly, a lot more modestly. And that ties in. I don't know if you've heard of that study. There have been a few studies done like this. I can't really point to the exact name, but the it's like the average amount of money someone needs to actually be
Be
happy,
happy, yeah.
um or yeah, over which no more happiness is achieved. And it's a surprisingly low amount of money. Like a few years ago it was like 70K a year. I think it's gone up now. I think it's like
I think it's like,
100K.
I thought it was like 90 something in the
Yeah,
90s,
yeah,
like
something
low
like that.
low
And
hundreds.
what it basically is covering expenses and enough for some leisure. over that, you don't get happier. And like, I need to remind myself all the time because I'm easily at that. I'm above that, if anything. So I'm like, why am I trying to get all of this? Why do I think that getting all of this will make me happier? I know for a fact it won't, right? Because like I know, like now that I'm getting really serious about building my brand up, I sort of established a business, like I registered a business earlier this year. Now I'm realizing the more I grow, the more worries and concerns and things I need because now I'm slowly getting to the point it's like I might need to start employing someone to do some facets of my business. Okay, now I have to think about employment. Now I have to think about having staff. Right now I have to think about, and I know like I got people in my family who, like my sister runs a business, my mom has been in business all her life. There's never been a day that I've not heard about staffing issues. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, that is a okay, cool. I built my business up to the point where now I need to hire someone. Am I happier now? Well, like as in, what is my lifestyle like? All of a sudden, my lifestyle is like, I have to worry about whether this person is going to show up today. Like, oh, I have to worry about whether this person does a good job and makes my business look good or bad. I have to worry about that. Sure, I'm making a lot more. I'm making a lot more money now, but my worries have tripled. You know,
You
how
got
much
a
more?
recruitment employment law. Like, okay, let's say you guys you have a because so my professional life, my corporate life, so to speak, is managing people. I'm a sales manager, so
Right,
literally, I'm going through this right now of like,
right,
if
right.
if things are turning bad, in the
Yes,
sense of it no longer makes sense to work together,
yeah.
how do you exit that person? And how
Mm,
much time and energy and focus by making sure, because the worst thing, as you said, is like your brand. So if the
yes,
first person you ever hire leaves on bad terms, they can
yes.
go out there and start talking shit, and you want to cover
Oh,
your own
yeah,
ass. So it's like, I agree. The
yeah,
the more quote unquote successful you get, the more
yeah,
hits you have, because it's like, when you bought your first place, it's like, oh,
yeah,
and now, and then you've got your studio, and then you've got this, and now I've got to make sure, oh shit, the tap leaks in this place, the electricity fucked up in that place. Oh,
yeah,
I got to make sure that all this shit works, and all of a sudden
yeah.
you're not even doing the stuff that you
You're
want
not
to
even
do.
doing what you wanted to do. Yeah, someone, bro. Okay, and this ties into this interesting because I love having like these big hypothetical conversations with my friends, right? So we're always like, oh, bro, what would you do with $1 billion? And okay, so this is a question I posed to the people in my band. We had quite a vicious argument over this. I was simply like, if someone offered you $100 billion, would you take it? And they were like, of course. I was like, no, think about it. They're like, what? Like, what's the condition? I'm like, there's no condition. It's just $100 billion. And I'm like, obviously, I'll take it. And I'm like, I don't actually think I would. Like a
And
hundred,
I
like there's
disagree
a
with you
hundred,
so
there's a
much right
hundred
now.
billion, there's $100 million. $100 billion is not even like we think of rich people as the same. We think of like if you've got a few million, you're just the same as someone who's got billion. You're not. Someone who's got 100 million is closer to being bankrupt than someone who's got 100 billion. Like $100 million is closer to me and you than 100 billion. Like 100 billion is a stupid amount of money. Like if you have $100 billion, you are on the radar of every single world leader. You like where do you keep that? What do you even begin to do when you realize that you could single-handedly essentially solve massive issues? Like you could solve, theoretically you could solve world poverty, but how do you even go about it? My friend's like, yeah, I'd set up a charity. Oh, are you gonna run this charity? You're gonna manage it? No, I'll hire someone to manage it. Okay, how do you know they're gonna do a good job? How do you know they're not gonna like defraud you? I'll hire someone else. Oh, so all of a sudden all you're creating all this work for yourself to manage this charity that you think is going to do amazing stuff, bro. Like some charities have crazy issues with like fraud and with like just immoral things going on, with problems going on with money mismanagement, with corruption, all this. How are you going to sort all that out? You want that to be on you? You want to do that? You know what I'm saying? Like $100 billion is the kind of money, and this is where we're talking about the lifestyle thing. Is it actually going to give you the lifestyle that you want? It feels
Here's the
like it,
thing, though.
like when you think of that much money, like, yeah, it's infinite money, but
here's
Would you want that lifestyle?
here's my counterpoint. You're
Yeah.
assuming that the person who takes that 100 billion is going
Yes.
to
As
do
a conscience.
something valuable with it.
As a conscience.
As a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
conscience. So like,
Yeah.
so if we say in this hypothetical, and I love hypotheticals like this as well,
Yes.
with my friends all the time. If we say in this hypothetical that I am just going to live the life I actually want to live, and I'm going to leave my 100 billion, which, let me be very clear for anyone who doesn't realize, no billionaire has their money liquid in cash.
Yes.
It's
No,
all in
yeah,
assets. But
an
let's
asset.
say you have 100 billion liquid.
Yes.
If all you wanted was like to just go around, go on holiday, could do that hypothetically. Like you could buy one house, you could
Yeah.
have the bills come out of that one account, and
Yeah.
you could just go on holiday, and it would be the most selfish thing that you could do.
It would. It would. But do you know? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, keep going.
But that is it is only more selfish because you have the means to help others. Whereas if you wanted that lifestyle today and you made just enough money to make that perfect lifestyle for you happen, people would turn around and say you're pretty selfish, but no one would criticize you as much as they would if you took the 100 billion and lived.
That's what I'm saying. And that's what I was trying to get to. That's the point I was trying to make with my friends. I'm like, what you're thinking when I say $100 billion, you're not thinking of 100, you're not really thinking of that amount of money. You're just thinking of some large amount of money that will enable you to do whatever you want. But I'm saying 100, like even the security. That's what I'm saying. So even in your situation where the person decides to not do anything helpful, even just keeping $100 billion, how do you keep $100 billion? Like, what do you think one bank is going to keep that amount of money? And
under
if
a mattress,
that one
man.
bank, was that
under a mattress?
Just like cash. Yeah. Well, how do you even keep, like, imagine 100 billion of cash? You'll need like an entire warehouse and who's gonna guard it? Who's gonna guard it for you? And can you trust that person? Like even the security of keeping $100 billion is ludicrous because no bank's going to do it. No, you know what I'm saying? So like, even if you decide to do nothing useful with it, just keeping that money is
it reminds me of like the image of like, in Scarface where they go in with bags of cash to the bank and the bank is like, what the hell are you doing with all these bags of cash? Like we can't take all this cash. But these days, at least it's money is kind of fake. It's just numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do agree with you though. If you were like, hey, can like ANZ, like I think we both have ANZ, I'm pretty sure. So it makes sense for cross audience, across the Tasman. But like ANZ would probably really struggle to keep 100 billion on the books.
And even still, what stops a government from being like, you know what? Nah, we don't. We're not down with any individual carrying that amount of money. You know how you have it? No, you don't anymore. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? What are you going to argue with the government? Like, what are you going to do? Yes, I have the money. They're like, no.
You could topple governments with it. You could actually go, you know what? I'm buying the army. I'm buying everything. Like there is a world where you could take over and be like, I'm in charge. But the headache of that would be so fucked that it's not even worth talking about.
The problem with that is that even your transactions rely on the government backing you. They decide whether you can make transactions through the bank. Because how do you buy the military if you go to the bank, say, I want to make this transaction? They're like, oh, well, actually, you don't have that money anymore.
You need to go to China and you need to be like, all right, let me put my money in your bank. We're going to topple this government regime. I'm going to be a Ponzi for you. So let's wire all this. Yeah. You are right. It has suddenly gotten very complicated as to how to exist.
Most people do not want that kind of smoke. And like honestly, the whole point is less about that specific situation and more about getting people to think of the lifestyle that you want is a different concept than being like materially wealthy. Like it's not like material wealth can bring you parts of this lifestyle, but really this lifestyle is a combination of a few things. It's a bit of material wealth. It's probably romantic love. It's probably good friendships. It's probably health. It's just a safe living environment, not being in a war-torn zone. There's a few things that give you the lifestyle that you really want, and it's not just material wealth. And you can have a lot of material wealth that will just complicate stuff. Because I don't want to be managing people. I'd love to have a manager employed that will take care of all that stuff. I don't want to be thinking about any business. I don't want to do my taxes. I don't do any of that stuff. But you have to rely on human beings to do that, and they will routinely stuff that up. Uh, they will routinely get things wrong. So you will just have to wait. There's no like business owner, CEO on earth who just sits back and be like, yeah, man, like I got everything sus. No, they all losing their hair. So yeah.
That's why I think like we as a society, we kind of make billionaires look worse than sometimes like the reality of how shit their lives are. They've almost punished themselves to a point where like running the company that they ran for 20 plus, for however long it took them to make the money that they made, is kind of fucked. Like the punishment and the stress and like all that stuff, they're like quote unquote living it up now, like you said, but they're not really living it up, and they have all this shit to worry about. And like,
yeah, well, interestingly enough, so this has ties to the argument that people make when we're talking about the issue of colonialism, and people are like, well, the colonized people are lucky because we brought things like technology and all this kind of stuff and these advanced all these things. They were just living really basic lives before that. I'm like, yeah, but what's the like if you were literally happy just going and gathering your food for the day, then coming home and eating it? Like if that made you happy, what is wrong with that? Because the huge ironic thing, I put this in a song, it's like we're spending time to make money so that we can spend that money on making more time. That's what we do. Like that's literally what we do. We're literally working, like people working 9 to 5 so they can have enough money to free up their time to do stuff. I'm like, right. So if we didn't, imagine if we just skipped that part and we were just like, because like I've asked some people like, bro, what would you do if you just could do and you had no money or no time restraints? They're like, oh bro, just go fishing every day. I'm like, you realize that's the lifestyle people lived like before this whole thing. Some people actually just did go fishing. Their day was like, I'm gonna go fishing, I'm gonna come home.
They just didn't have cars. They just
they just didn't have a car. They just walk, like they just had to walk quite a few Ks.
They just live
cool.
close.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't want to have to walk a few Ks. Okay, but then you go to the gym for an hour every day. because your lifestyle is not walking. So you need to force yourself to do stuff. So it's like there are all these things that it's so ironic, right? Sometimes I laugh. I mean, and I'm a full participant of this lifestyle. Like I go to the gym every day. But I kind of laugh at everything I'm doing. I'm like, this is crazy, right? Because I'm just doing a more complicated version of what I could have been doing if I lived in pre-colonial times. It's funny. It really is funny. But yeah.
What I find funny is like, what is the point? Like,
yeah.
Like when I see people at the gym, so I go to the gym as well, and I'm like, they're competing, like they're getting ready for a competition to lift the most weight, or like,
yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, but what is the point? At the end of the day, you did some cool shit, but it literally doesn't matter because you're right. Like everyone's like, oh, that's cool. And then everyone else goes about their day and goes about living their life. Like my brother went to Tanzania recently and he went to a remote village, and he was like, the cultural shock for what it is to come from our life, see how they live in their life. And they don't have hospitals. They don't have anything. They have the complete opposite of what anything we have. I mean, they have children, brides, and stuff like that. Like it is confronting as fuck based on our values. But you look at them and you're like, and he was like, they're kind of happy though.
Yeah.
Like, kind of just in their own world, and they have no desire to leave it. It's all they know. But they're kind of satisfied. And then I get on this plane and I'm in this cramped fucking seat and I'm in the air flying and I'm like, this sucks. But I'm flying across the world.
I'm flying. Yeah, man. Look, I'm doing it. Yeah. I'm out here. Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, I'm like, man, I'm thankful to have like this nice office chair that I sit in every day. Some people, and then I'm like, but I've got back problems because
Yeah,
I sit in the chair 8 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's man, yeah, it's crazy. I think we need those kind of moments to bring us back to like I know me, I need to remind myself like, yeah, like if this what I've got right now, if this is all it's ever gonna be, I have to learn to be okay with that because I could go more, I could get something better, I might not necessarily be happier, right? Or I could lose some stuff and I might not be happy or I might be happier, right? But I think yeah, everyone needs to have it in some position in their mind. If this is all there is, well, what are you going to do about it? You know what I'm saying? Like you have to kind of choose to like being at peace to some extent is a choice. Obviously, there's some like material realities, like if you're not healthy, that's a thing. If you can't afford a meal, that's a problem. But if you've got like the basic things checked off the list, and the only thing you're really thinking about is like ambitious stuff, there needs to be a part that counterbalances that and says, yeah, I want more, but if I don't get more, that's cool.
It's like
You know?
Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like needs versus wants. And we say we need stuff when we really want stuff. And language is powerful in that sense.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
I'm going to transition quickly because I feel like we could talk about this for like 3 more
Yeah,
hours.
yeah,
And
sure.
something
Yeah,
I definitely wanted to ask you about was how you learnt enough to be able to, number one, replicate the different technical aspects of rapping, but then
yeah.
also to be able to verbalize it so easily. Because like it's not just listening to music. I listen to music and I can hear without a doubt the distinct difference when you're going, okay, here is a concept. Let me show you what it's like, and then let me switch the concept and let me show you what that's like. And the journey to be able to do that as well as you do intrigues me to no end.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is really interesting. Basically, there've been a few different experiences and seasons of my life that at the time felt very disconnected from everything else. But now that I look back in hindsight, I'm like they were all like different streams that were coming together to make it possible for me to do this. So it all started when I was 4 years old, and my parents were like, "We're gonna make you play piano, classical piano." Like, what kid wants to do that, bro? I didn't want to do that. Come on now, but I was being forced to do that. Um, I did that all the way up to age 11. Right, most of the time I didn't like it. Then I started playing drums. What did I realize? All that music theory knowledge. Now, piano is. This is what I tell people. I'm like, if you ever want to teach your kids something, if you want to get them into music, teach them piano. Because piano teaches them harmony, melody, and rhythm. Complex concepts of all of those things. So me learning piano at such a young age was an incredible musical foundation, one that I'd never appreciated at the time. I didn't care about piano, but when I got to age 11, I started playing drums. Drums came very naturally. There was a friend of mine who introduced me to drums. He had a drum kit at home. He was much better than me for a long time, but then all of a sudden I like overtook him with such speed and ferocity because I just had this musical base that he didn't have. Um, I had this command over rhythm and how it worked and how different rhythms could interplay and how I could put some rhythm somewhere else and see how I had that he didn't have, and I attribute that largely to playing piano. That was the first thing. The second thing, and this is something that you'll realize, a lot of the rappers and especially R&B singers who are big, they came up in church. They're like ex-gospel singers or ex-gospel musicians. There's a reason why church just churns out musicians, because if you're on the church band, especially at a smaller church, you're literally playing in front of a crowd every single week to week. You might even be doing that 2 to 3 times a week because you might have a rehearsal, you might have all these special services. So you're literally playing music every week in front of a crowd. People don't realize what that does because we see it as the church things like, oh, it's church, it's different, but you're playing a gig, and a lot of the time you're learning new music on the spot. A lot of the time, if especially if your band is small, you might have to fill in on an instrument that you don't usually play, so all of a sudden you're learning that instrument and you're playing it every single week. So I grew up in church, like my family was strongly, Christian. So not only I started playing piano, I started playing drums. As soon as I was okay enough at drums, I was playing drums at church every single week. So number one, I really, really learned the ins and outs of my instrument. Number two, I learned how to play in a band. Now, this is a really interesting thing, because people might be great at the instrument. They might be fantastic at the instrument, but that does not mean they know how to play in a band. And what I mean by playing in a band, I mean, like, there's this sense that you get. It's almost a sixth sense, right? When I play with other musicians, I know immediately if they've been in church, because I can jam with them and we can feel if the music is crescendoing. So I go to these jam nights quite often in my city, where it's just like basically a freestyle jam. Any jazz musician can come along and pick up an instrument. I know immediately if they've been in church, because there's a way that they can just hear what I'm about to do, and I can hear what they're about to do. Our music like crescendos together, it reaches this climax and it drops all together. And people are like, oh, you guys were playing a song. We're like, no. They're like, how do you do that then? I'm like, well, when you've played music in a band with different people every week in, week out for years, you almost develop basically such a deep intuition about how music works with each other. It's so inexplicable. It's like a sixth sense. And so these people that we jam with, when they're on that level, it feels like we've been in a band for a while. So that's the other thing. And then in school, I was just a hyper band nerd, right? I was just like, well, I was in the concert band, I was in the jazz band. I was one of those kids who went to the music room at lunchtime, and I was either playing drums, I was trying to play guitar, I was trying to play bass, I was on the computers trying to do composition. I was doing everything. So it's kind of like I was learning music from every single angle. I was playing it, I was making it, I was performing it, I was writing it, I was arranging it. I was like every single angle. And in all these different ways. If I was not playing drums, I was playing bass. If I was not playing bass, I was playing guitar. If I was not playing guitar, I was singing. If I was so like just that kind of like musical immersion, all the time, every day, every week, playing in front of people. Like, I didn't realize that at the time, but like the way that music just soaked into a deep part of my soul meant that now I can listen to music and understand it in a way that I realize that a lot of people don't. Um, and that only occurred to me when I started doing this rap teaching thing. Because I honestly, truth be told, I didn't sit out there being like, I'm doing this new awesome thing. The first video that blew me up, I was like, I'll just talk about how I approached rapping on this particular song. And then the video was like, don't rap on the beat, rap behind the beat. That video absolutely blew up. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. Let me start making some videos that are like that. And then all of a sudden people are like, wow, the way you communicate, this is insane. I can't believe it. And I'm like, bro, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I swear I'm only doing like really simple rhythmic stuff. But I think what now I realize is that I'm just seeing music differently. I'm seeing it like what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, is different to what other people are seeing and hearing.
It's
Like, I
language.
can.
That's it.
Yeah,
As you're talking about it, I'm like, oh, this is your language. Like, this is
it's my
your
language.
version. You're seeing it all in,
Yes.
100%. Like, it's weird, because that realization of you think it's normal until you verbalize it, and then you realize, oh, holy shit, I'm only a very few people. Like you said, not everyone. I would say, let's take that to the wild extreme. Most people would never hear music or think about music in that way unless they've understood music theory. And I talk about music theory with artists, but you're the first one that was actually like, showed me the impact of knowing music theory to the nth degree.
And do you want to know the wildest thing? Because a lot of people are like, man, this guy, give him a PhD, and like, I'm like, bro, I'm feeling mad imposter syndrome, because if you put me in a high level music theory class against all these other people, I actually don't know that much in terms of like terminology, the different, perhaps like all the different patterns people learn and all that kind of stuff. But what I do know is that I think on that level. So I can't, like, I think on that level, I just don't know all their concepts. So it's been a real interesting journey just deep diving into like rhythm theory. And then just being like, oh, I know what that is. I never knew that had a name. Um, but it has a name. I can help translate this to people who will never ever read this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I'll read something. I'll be like, I'll think of it. I'll think of a theoretical concept or something. Or I might just Google rhythm theory and just read an article and be like, oh yeah, yeah. This is highly technical, but I know like there's a level below. I know what they're talking about. I can make this. I can make this digestible for people who aren't ever going to go there with music theory. And that's again, it comes back to that basically the intense music conditioning that I have. So like a lot of people don't really know this, but I was firmly in rock and metal most of my formative years. Like most of high school I was metalcore, hardcore, like punk. That was my thing. And hip hop was definitely secondary to me. But what I realized is that the patterns that are in middle, I see them everywhere in hip hop. Like I almost see them, and this is where I'm like, I must see music differently to a lot of people, because people are like, oh, how can you like this angry screaming music and then like hip hop? But to me, I'm like, they're the same. The difference is the texture on top. It's like the difference is like how can I say it? It's like decorative. You know what I'm saying? It's like the skeleton, the bones of this music is the same. The difference is the textures that are used to decorate these bones make the end structure quite different. But for me, when I hear a metal breakdown, I'm hearing a hip hop beat. Or when I'm hearing like a hard trap beat, I'm hearing a metal breakdown. You know what I'm saying? Or when I'm listening to rap, I'm hearing a snare drum. Like I'm seeing these patterns, they're the same thing, which is why I feel like such an imposter, because I'm like, when people figure out that they're just the same thing, they're gonna be like, oh, this guy wasn't really doing anything special. But I'm just like, this is so clear to me, like all these and it extends further than just metal and hip-hop. There's like funk, there's like jazz, there's like especially like a lot of like traditional African music, Latin American music. I'm listening to all this music and I'm like, bro, this is the same stuff in every single genre of music. It's the same thing. It's the same patterns. And all I'm doing is just being like, that pattern there, let's talk about that a little bit. Or let's apply it to rap, or that pattern there. Oh snap, I heard this pattern in this Latin song. I also heard a rapper rap that same rhythm. There must be something about that pattern. Let me ever think about it. Oh, it has a name. Okay, sweet. Oh, it doesn't have a name. I'm gonna make up a name. It has a name now. So it's just it. Yeah, it's this. Yeah, it's a language. I'm seeing. It's like I'm seeing its depth. I'm seeing something really deep that unifies all these things together. But that comes from being a lifetime musician. You know what I'm saying? It comes from being like it's real funny because ironically, I'm really bad at lyrics. Like people are like, how you're a rapper? I'm like, yeah, I'm really bad though. Like if you ask me to rap one of my songs right now, I'll be like, oh damn, really? Can I practice it? Because I'm not good with lyrics. But what I can do is I can listen to a song and I could probably transcribe every part of that song after a couple listens. Like the songs I used to listen to, like when I was little, I can't recite the lyrics, but I could transcribe the guitar part from memory. I can transcribe
That's insane. That's
the drum.
insane to me.
Like
But
there are a lot of songs I could literally just like in my studio right now. I've got guitars, I've got basic. If I wanted to in fact, I've thought about this because there are a lot of punk songs I used to love. The recordings were real bad. I'm like, I could probably just reconstruct that whole song, and I could do it from memory. And people are like, how do you memorize this stuff? And it's like, oh, because I see those patterns everywhere. I see them. I see them everywhere.
it's a bit like to you, it's at the level of like you just remember a line from a movie.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's automatic. But I gotta say, you definitely helped me with a bit of imposter syndrome. I'm horrendous with bars as well and lines. Everyone's like, rap me your favorite, and I'm like, I don't it's hard for me to tell you this, but like I need to sit down, memorize,
Yes.
and
Yes.
practice over and over and over and
Oh,
over
bro,
again.
me too, bro. Like when people like, oh, they'll ask me, oh, can you feature on this thing? I'm like, yeah, sweet. Can you write your verse? Like when are we performing it tomorrow? What? You want me to write something the night before and there's no way? No, son. I need like a week. Like I'm bad with words, but with rhythm, I'll get the rhythm straight away, bro. Like give me the rhythm, I'll be able to do the rhythm. But the words, no. There's something about letters that's like numbers. For some reason, I can do numbers. Like you tell me your credit card number once it's there forever. But
I like how you've gone, yeah, hypothetically, tell me your credit card number.
yeah, just
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
test. But you know what I'm saying? So I got numbers down, but words, no, bro. Like my wife teases me all the time because I just don't know words. Like, like really famous songs, really like Michael Jackson, like Beatles songs. People will be like, bro, how do you not know the song? I'm like, I think I know it, but I don't. I don't know my own song, so I don't have any. You know, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. It is it is kind of just the way it works though. Like you can't be amazing at everything. You've got your
Yeah,
like weaknesses. I think that makes you human. But you know, going back to, you know, you feel like you'll get found out. You'll never
yeah,
get found out because no one's saying you're the greatest. They're just comparing
mm,
it to themselves. And in the same
right.
way, you're like, I feel like an imposter because I'm comparing my moron knowledge to the greatest artists. And so like that's what we all do is we feel like imposters only because we see how amazing it can get. And we're like,
Yeah,
oh shit, compared
I'm
to
not
them,
a.
nobody. But like at the end of the day, you genuinely help people understand what they're listening to. Like,
I think that's where I'm starting to like. That's where I'm starting to realize that, or I guess that's where the imposter syndrome is softening a bit. Where I realize that what I might not be like the top of the top when it comes to musical genius, but what I can do better than a lot of people is communicate that in a number of different ways. Like because I see the pattern at an abstract level, I can represent it mathematically. I can represent it with colors. I can represent it with in so many different ways. And that's why like I do a lot of mentoring and teaching because I'm like, okay, let me explain it in terms of this. Oh, that didn't work. Fine. What do you understand? What are the kind of things um you know? And they'll tell me, and they'll be like, okay, I'll explain the concept in that term. And in order to do that, you need a really deep level of understanding, but you also need the skill. You know like a conceptual you need like really good abstract knowledge. And I think that's kind of the main thing that separates us from animals, I believe, like our abstract knowledge. We've got like language. The whole idea of language requires us to have a level of abstract knowledge so that there's a concept that can be communicated in a few different mediums. So like I feel like I have that quite well. um
I think you're a good teacher. That's the feeling
yeah.
I get is because when I was growing up, my dad was fantastic at maths, like
Mm,
genius, like unreal. The only way I can describe his level was like when he was at university, and this is in, I think it was overseas. I forget exactly where, but he needed to get 8 out of 10 maths questions right to get into uni.
mm.
Completed 8 questions and walked out. And I was like, Dad,
He was
what?
just that confident.
He was just
He
because kind of
just
like, what the hell? Like, what if you made a mistake? He's like, it's maths. It's either right or it's wrong.
Is
And I
either
was
right or
just,
wrong.
yeah. So that's like
Yeah.
the level. My grandfather, who's his father, he proved to me 1 = 0 somehow. My mind is still broken. I trust me. I don't know. You're looking at me like I know. I couldn't. That's all I can say. But like, so they were amazing at maths and they understood it. And so when I would like, hey, Dad, can you help me with my homework? He would be like this, but he was an awful teacher. And what I needed was not a genius. What I needed was someone who knew how to break it down and teach me. And that's what you do really well. We don't need a genius because we're not there. We're not at that level, but we need someone to be patient enough. And you do it so quickly. Can I just say, it's one thing to be a good teacher. It's another thing to do it concisely and quickly and entertainingly. And you manage to do all those things. So when I say you're a good teacher, I genuinely am like, I think a lot of teachers could learn some lessons of just like how to be concise enough to be like, here's the lesson, let me explain it in a conceptual way that takes it outside of the concept necessarily.
Yeah. Taking it outside the concept, I think, and like using the. It's interesting. So, because I believe that to effectively teach something, you should use the least amount of jargon you can use. I've started using a lot more jargon, in my videos quite intentionally because and the reason is because I've got a course, that's on its way, and I want to obscure some of the stuff because I want people to be like, oh right, I didn't really understand that. I need that unpacked so I can be like, oh yeah, okay, come up by my course, But I want people to, what I'm saying. I want people to be like, oh, this is an established thing, and I need to understand more, because that, in the real world, like, and you can't have everything explained to you in as if you were five. Like, it would be great, but that's not how it works. And like as the concepts become more complex, you can't continue to break down every single building block that you need in order to get to that complex concept, or the video is going to be 10. Like, if I have to explain what a 16th note is every single time, we're not going to get anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So I have started using jargon because as the stuff I'm getting becomes more complicated, I need those terms in order to explain the high level stuff. So when people are like, okay, I don't really. So there's this video that it's funny because it's one of my least popular videos on TikTok. If you go to the comments, the comment section is a mess. I mean, there are a lot of people saying this is dope. A lot of people being like, what the hell is going on? I understood nothing. It's the one where I analyze an Andre 3000 verse. I think it's got like 500,000 views. Basically, I do this high level. It's not even that high level, to be honest, but compared to what a lot of people used to, it's a pretty high level analysis of like 4 bars of Andre's verse. And I basically go right down into the nitty gritties of what he does. And people like, this is crazy. Like, you're just over analyzing and blah, 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 blah. And literally, I'm like, okay, you don't actually get the point of the video because I don't expect you guys to follow this. The point is that I'm saying that if I need to go to that level, I can go to that level. And what I want you to understand is that rap can be analyzed at that level. It can be that complicated. It does have all these concepts around it. I can help you understand this if you follow my stuff. It was basically a display. It was like a flex. It was like, yeah, I can do this if I want to. I don't expect you to understand. That's
and
what the
also,
video
if
was.
you learn it, you could hypothetically construct things intentionally that with that complexity. So like,
Yeah.
you weren't saying that's what Andre 3000 did. You're just showing that
Right.
you could hypothetically go in, sit down intentionally and go, this is what I want to do.
Exactly. Okay, so man, a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people are like, Andre wasn't thinking about this. I'm like, bro, I don't care. It's kind of like grammar, right? This comes back to the whole music being a language. If we were to sit down and analyze the grammar in our sentences, bro, I don't think people realize how complex grammar is. Like, you got subject, you got predicate, you got like past participle, you got
Fucking hate
like
it. It's the
present,
worst.
present perfect. But you got all this kind of stuff. So if I was to take just 4 sentences from our conversation and actually properly grammatically analyze it, it would be so complicated, right? And people would be like, oh, they're not thinking about it. I'm like, of course not. Of course I'm not thinking about what's the subject, what's the predicate. I just know how to speak. So it's the same with language. Like, yeah, like Andre wasn't thinking about that. He just knows how to do music. But here's the thing: if you want to learn stuff, if you want to learn how to be like that, you know what I'm saying? If I want to learn a new language right now, I've got 2 options. I can go to wherever and just fumble around and hope that I pick it up, which is a valid way of learning. It can be frustrating as hell, and I might not have the luxury of being able to do that. Or I can sit down with a teacher and be like, yo, teach me how to do this. Oh, what's the grammar? Like, how does the grammar work in this language? How does vocabulary, how does sentence structure work? I need to learn this stuff. Sweet. Okay. That's like a shortcut for me to at least get to a level where I can fumble around more effectively, you know? So that's what I'm trying to get. That's what I'm trying to get people to understand with this whole music theory stuff, which is essentially the grammar of music, right? The vocabulary of music. I'm like, yes, you're right. You don't have to know this stuff to get to that level, but if you do, you'll get there way faster. You'll get there way faster. If you just know a little bit, you don't have to know the whole thing. You don't have to be a music theory expert, but if you know the basics, you'll get that whole lot. And this is another thing that I tell people who love to be in my comments telling me that music theory is useless. I'm like, okay, sweet. You're an awesome rapper, and you don't know any music theory. Go and communicate what you know to somebody else. Go on. Someone's like, what are you being like this? You just flow. Just flow. How? Okay. What does that mean? Let's say you've got a producer, and they want a certain kind of flow on their song. How are they going to communicate to you what that flow is? How? What are they going to say? Just flow? Okay, sweet. You just flow, and then you do something completely different to what they had in their mind. They're like, nah, I'm not really down with it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Whereas if you know the theory, you can be like, hey, man, can you just come at this with a triplet thing? And can you just put the emphasis on, this part of the triplet? I know exactly. If someone says that to me, I know exactly what they want, and I can do that, right?
Do you know what it reminds me of? Is like when you hear rappers and they're not intentionally offbeat. So like when you were talking about it, you were like, you can rap off beat, and this is how you would do it, and it still sounds good because it makes sense. But then there are lots of rappers, and I don't know why their songs are popular because it pisses me off. Is like I can tell they're off beat. I can't even tell you why. I'm just listening to it and it feels off, and I'm like, this sucks because intuitively you're not doing it intentionally. And then when you hear someone intentionally rap off beat, you're like, oh, there's purpose and there's intentionality and there is thought put into all of this. And that's why it sounds fucking dope.
Exactly, bro. That's honestly exactly it. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been in the studio with rappers. I'm like, oh hey man, you're just rushing a little bit. Can you sit back on the beat? And they'll do another take and it'll be exactly the same. And I'm like, because you don't know what I'm talking about. That's why you have no idea what I'm talking about. Like you're really, really good at doing this one thing that you know how to do, but you don't know why it sounds good. You just had people hyping you up. You haven't really bothered to learn the mechanics of it. So you don't have any creative power to switch it up if you need to switch it up. Like you're trusting that everything you do is good, but you're going to run into somebody, especially when you get into upper echelons of music. They don't really piss around like that. If they don't like what you're doing, they'll tell you no, that's not going to work. If you get into there and they're like, nah, we need you to try something else, and you don't have something else, what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? But if you know at least some music theory, and they say, hey, look, can you do like a 8-note bass flow instead of can you do a 16? Can you come at this with I'm gonna be like, me? I'm gonna go into any room and be like, yep, so I can do that. Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. Or if I'm a singer and they're like, oh no, these kind of melodies aren't working. Can you try like these kind of harmonies instead? Or can you try a melodic line sort of around here? Yep. Like, yep, I can. I know what you're talking about, and let me do that. Whereas all these people who piss on music theory, they're not gonna have any idea what's going on. They've got what they know how to do what they like to do. That's it. I'm like, right.
Because they've never been in a position that you just described. That's why they piss off, because they're like,
yeah, no, that's right. They haven't.
Yeah, but if they were, they would be like, oh, it's fucking embarrassing.
Yeah, and they need to understand that if they get big, that's how music works, bro. You're put in rooms with people that you've never worked with before, and you're expected to work with them. So if you don't know how to communicate music, you're screwed, bro. And I listened to this really interesting podcast. Someone was saying that once you get to that level of music, everyone knows it. Everyone knows some music. Everyone knows, like, because for example, let's say I'm producing, right? I don't have a lot of time. This session is 3 hours. The label has said we need a demo at the end of that 3 hours, right? if an artist comes into the room, it's like, yo, I've got the song idea. It's an A minor. Let's get onto it. I'm like, sweet, boom, A minor, let's do it. Right. I don't want to be going, I don't want to be explaining to someone, oh, bro, A minor has these notes in it and these that, and then have to explain what's the note, what is the interval. I don't want to explain that, bro. Like, are you ready to go or not? Like, we need to do this, you know? So if these people who piss on music theory, they're in for a rude awakening if they ever get to that level, and they need to get in rooms with producers they don't know, you know?
It's like pissing on basic language and grammar and trying to write
Right?
a book. And it's like, man, this shit, it's one paragraph. What the fuck? It's 30 pages of one paragraph. You can't spell. The sentences make no sense. There's no structure. There's no storyline. The words are in the wrong order. Like, it makes no sense. You're
It's
just
like,
saying the exact same thing, except because
except with
they
music.
don't get it, they're like, man, you're talking shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, this is and there are levels to this. One of the levels is, or layers rather. One of the layers is that hip hop specifically is seen. There's one sense in which it's seen as like the low hanging fruit of music. Like, anyone can just come, like, people like, oh, you're just talking on a beat. So there's that problem. The second problem is like the origin of hip hop was from lower socioeconomic communities who were expressing their socioeconomic conditions, right? So it's seen as music from the streets for the streets, which is fine. I've got no problem with that. But also, what you need to realize is that a lot of these people came through really deep musical, like, traditions, right? So even if they don't have these concepts articulated, there's a deep intuitive level which they know what these concepts are. So what people are resisting is the fact that now this music is being communicated in a way that is associated with like academia, right? So they see that as quite threatening. And they'd rather just say it's all bullshit, rather than being like, oh, actually, this is just another way of communicating. So what I really love is when people are in my comments being like, oh, I do this. This makes sense. Because I'm like, you get it. You get it. You get the fact that you don't have to know the theory, but the theory helps you contextualize it, understand it, and gives you the tools to expand on it or evolve it. You get it. The people who come in my comments saying this is bullshit, I to no end that annoys me, because I'm just like, you are so arrogant. You could have just said, oh, this is interesting. I didn't know that was how it could be talked about. Like, you could have said that. You could have said that, but you decided that you know more than someone who clearly knows more than you, and and it's a more appropriate thing to just call the whole thing bullshit. It's like anti-intellectualism to the max, and it's so annoying, bro.
Well,
Like, so, like, you can't tell me you listen to dudes like Eminem and be like, this dude is not a serious student of the craft. He might not have all the like music lingo down, but that you can tell the way that guy flows. He knows music in a way that, like, your music theory denying ass does not know.
they're the same people who turn around and go, Jay-Z's the GOAT. Man, he's the GOAT. He's the best. He can do it all. He does it all, Jay-Z. He can do it all. And then you're like, this little music theory, and they're like, nerd. Just the biggest. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, Biggie, Tupac, and they all have, all of this ability to change flows and adapt to a beat. And that's why they can, quote unquote, do it all, is because they understand. And like you said, there is a difference between formalized knowledge and learned knowledge. And, they were, as you said, hip hop comes from the streets, but growing up, soul, church was
Yeah.
such a big
Yeah.
thing.
That's the thing. A lot of the, like, because all the rappers that these guys are all they're idolizing, they're black. And they came up, like, do you understand that basically every black person in the States comes up in church? Like, basically they all came, like, those rappers, they all had church families. They obviously left at some point, but I guarantee you they were going to church at some point.
They talk
Like,
about
that's part of the culture. It's part of culture. You're going with, you know what I'm saying? So, like, and it's the same with, same with like Polynesian households, same with African households. We all grew up doing that stuff. So, um, there's a level like, bro, here's another thing. So I record a bunch of singers, right? I record lots of like pop artists and stuff. I can tell the singers who come from church because they can not only sing lead, but as soon as I'm like, all right, can we get a harmony? They'll do the harmony. And then I'm like, oh, can we try another harmony? And they'll do another harmony. Whereas people who haven't come up, I'm like, they'll sing lead, and then I'm like, oh, okay, let's work on harmonies now. They're like, oh, I'm I don't really know harmony. I'm like, but you sing so well. How can you know? And so sometimes I'll have to write the harmony for them. And in extreme cases, I've had to sing the harmony for them because they can't even like, even if I write it and sing it to them, they can't even replicate what I'm singing because their mind is so glued to the harmony. They don't oh the melody that they've got in their head. So they don't even see music to the point where they can divorce themselves from what they've written. Um, Whereas like as soon as someone sings a melody, like I immediately know what at least three harmonies are. And if I need to, I can work out 4, 5, or 6 or 7 and some counterpoint if we need to. And most people who grew up in church can do that kind of thing. Even these rappers, that's what they don't. Even these rappers can kind of do that. So like, it's just funny to me when they yeah when they like discount music theory so much because I'm like, bro, all music theory is just putting language to this stuff, you know. And just because you don't have the words, it doesn't mean that you're not doing music theory. Like as soon as I ask you, if someone's like, bro, this flow was dope, and I ask you the question, what about it was dope? As soon as you try to answer that question, you were doing music theory. As soon as you put thought to the idea, why was this dope? Or what was dope? What was dope? Describe it to me. As soon as you put thought to that, it's music theory. So you might as well just learn all the concepts that have already been established, right? You might as well just learn the language rather than trying to invent a new language around it.
Let me ask you
Yeah.
this though, because like, so we're gonna run so long.
That's
but,
right.
but let me ask you this: when you get a singer, or if there's a singer who listens to this and they're like, you know what, I don't know harmonies, I don't know how to do those things that you're describing.
Yeah.
What would you do if you were them? Obviously, that they, for whatever reason, they didn't grow up around music. They've obviously learned how to sing. They're great singers. They can deliver a performance. But how would you recommend they then elevate to the next level to try and get as close to these other people that you're describing as they can?
They would have to force themselves into positions that they're not used to being in, musically. Because like I said, everyone who grew up, and especially a small church, you had to do like, if there wasn't a bass player, bruh, jump on bass, bruh. It's like, I've never played a bass. You about to play one tonight. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a lead singer, you're jumping on BVs or you're learning piano. Learning like that's actually, yeah, that's a better idea. For if you're a singer and you know and you struggle with stuff like harmony, you struggle with like alternative rhythm, learn piano. Like go like get a piano or get a keyboard, go on YouTube, search beginner piano lessons. Because the first thing that you learn in piano, besides like finger position, is scales, right? Because scales teach you what notes should be played. Scales teach you the relationship of notes to each other, right? As soon as you start learning that stuff, you're like, oh, you're like, oh no way. So that's the note that I was singing, and that's the, oh my gosh. You know what I'm saying? Piano is brilliant because it literally, it's a visual representation of all these things. It has every single note that you can possibly sing or think of in front of you visually, and you can visualize where, sorry, I've got a keyboard in front of me right now, but you can literally visualize the relationship between notes. So go and learn an instrument like either piano or guitar. I think piano is superior to guitar in that sense, but guitar is great for it. You can still learn all the stuff on guitar. If it's rhythm that you're struggling with, go and learn drums. Go and learn drums, because drums, you have to force your limbs to do different things at the same time. So if you need to understand rhythm quite deeply, at a level that you can make your limbs do different things. That will help you understand how different So in a lot of my videos, I'm doing stuff like this. If I ask you to do that right now, if I'm like click 2 with one hand and click 3 with the other hand, no one who's not a drummer is going to be able to do, no one, right? And it's the whole thing of since I can do this, I can therefore go da 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 da. I can vocalize 3 notes in 2 clicks, which means I can rap 3 in 2 notes. So like that's what I mean, where I'm like, I'm seeing these patterns. Like I play drums and I'm like, oh, I'm looking at rap now. I'm like, oh, that's just what I played on drums. It's just like what my left hand was doing when my right hand was doing this. I just need to make my mouth do it and mouth certain words at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, if it's melody and harmony you struggle with, go learn piano. If it's rhythm, go learn drums for sure.
And then
And you don't have to be an expert. You just have like literally as soon as you start learning the basic stuff, like your mind will just go because you'll see how things are related to each other.
and then do Mazbou Q's course, which is coming.
Yes. Give me money. No, but really, honestly though, because my course, here's the thing. A lot of people don't want to like it's hard to search YouTube and find a succinct, systematized set of either videos or set of like articles or pages that will teach you what the kind of like enough rhythm that you need to know. Because it's once you start learning it, it blows up very quickly. And you're like, what do I need to know to start rapping? You might start freaking learning about all this complex jazz like polymetricism, and you're like, what? Brains blowing up, or to find out basically no rappers do that, right? So the good thing about my course is that I'm gonna get real silly here, it's not even out. But the good thing about my course is that I'm teaching enough rhythm. I'm teaching the only rhythm you need to know. You know, I'm going to teach you like if you're an absolute noob, you know nothing. I'm teaching you the very basics, but only what you need to know to be able to rap. And it's enough so that if you want to go deeper, you definitely can. But I'm teaching you what you need to know to rap. Yeah.
Well, as a salesperson myself, I love a bit of a sales pitch. So I'm a fan. Do you have a time frame for when that's going to come out?
Okay, so I've got a few obstacles to cross. So I actually have to so I've scripted the whole thing, and I've started making all the assets that go with it. Like because I've had to write some mini like verses and all these exercises and stuff, and then I'm gonna sort of block out some time and just film the whole thing. And then I need to figure out stuff like where to host it, like what website to use, what email system to use, what pricing, So there are a few hurdles I need to figure out from like the business and the marketing side of things. But it's definitely in the next few months, I reckon. It's gonna be there. And also I need to figure out who I'm gonna push it to. So I had a very interesting conversation with a friend who's like, you should probably look at first just exclusively going the school route, the school and college route first, as a proof of concept, because you know that they want it, which I do because I've literally had schools and college research, so I know that they want it. I don't know how well it's going to go on TikTok because man, with TikTok's interesting, right? You can have 1 million followers, but it doesn't mean that your video is going to have 1 million views. Like you can still put out a video that has 1,000 views and that's all it gets. So like I can't lure myself into a false sense of, oh sweet, once the course is ready, all I do is put out a video on TikTok saying, yo, the course is ready. Yeah, they'll probably give that 100 views because TikTok does control that stuff and no one will know. So I have to figure out an effective way to get that message across to the wider public. But in the meantime, it's like, well, if I can get schools and colleges on board, maybe that's a way in as well.
Well, man, if there's any way I can help, genuinely, I've said this time and time again, but the more people that get hip hop, the better it is for the genre, the better it is for the industry. And for anyone who's ever been tempted, I know I've been tempted to write. I tried to write an intro to this very podcast and I couldn't do it because I was like, this is way fucking harder than I thought it would be. But if you are tempted, definitely make sure you check it out. And my friend, I've only got one more question for you. but
Yeah,
it's
it was.
probably the hardest question that I'm going to ask. It's the only question that I planned on the show, and it is as follows: if you had to recommend one album that
Oh,
everybody should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, cannot be your own music, can be any genre of music, and it doesn't have to be the best of all time, just for people to appreciate, what would it be?
oh my gosh, what a question. This is
I'm,
one I
I'm low
needed.
key. I'm low key, somewhat of a genius in a different way, in the sense that I like torturing my guests a little bit.
This is very curveballs. Oh my gosh. One album. Um,
The look on your
I'm
face is the best.
yeah, man. Look, it's crazy. Look, I'm probably gonna say something like probably like Michael Jackson Bad. Probably Michael Jackson Bad, because I remember that was the first album that really, really did something to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I loved a lot of music, but that album, there were songs on that that I like craved. I was like, I must listen to this, you know, and I must listen to it again. So I probably actually need to go back to that album now that sort of see music at a sort of high level, and then have a think about why that music did that to me. I reckon I'd probably be able to sort of pick up those things. But I know there's something about this that album. Michael Jackson was a genius when it came to melody, a genius when it came to harmony. He's a very, very underrated vocal harmony, vocal arranger or vocal producer. People don't think of him as that, but he is an extremely good vocal producer. Um, his I like obviously he didn't produce all the music himself, but he definitely had a hand in it. Him and Quincy Jones, I think.
Yeah, Quincy.
So them together, they crafted a lot of amazing stuff. And I think there's obviously a reason why he's thought of the king of pop. There's something about his music that transcended in a way that others didn't. So, and I know that album for me, people say that, you know, Thriller and all that. I'm great. That was a little bit before my time. For me, it was bad. Like when I was bad, you know, I'm a child of the '90s, so it was Michael Jackson bad for me. Yeah, there must be something about the album. I need to go back, but I reckon, yeah, if you want to get a sense of, especially like popular music, that album, yeah.
Well, man, we might have to have you back on the show and talk about Bad if you wanted to.
Yeah, give me
You
some
could
homework.
legitimately, you could listen to it. I could listen to it as well. We could see what your brain, as a person who understands music theory, me as the layperson, and kind of,
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know kind of what we can both say, but verbalize completely differently, and wonder
Yes.
like if we notice the same things but completely differently. So I'm a salesperson myself. I love that idea. If you wanted to, of course, but
Yeah.
as I said, absolute pleasure to have you on the show. For anyone who wants to, make sure you check him out. He's available on YouTube, TikTok. That's where he's obviously known as the one and only the Rap Scientist. But obviously, you're on Spotify, you're on IG as well, and your most recent single. So please make sure you check that out. Wait on My Bars Part 6.
Yeah.
Man, is there anything else you wanted to shout out? Anything else you wanted to plug?
Just if you have if you have a New Zealand audience, I'm playing live this Saturday at Cross Street Festival,
Got to
which is
say to
on
you, my friend, this won't make it out by this Saturday. It'll probably
yeah,
be a little
the
while.
next Saturday.
No,
All
it'll
right.
probably be like 4 to 6 weeks, is my guess.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, and another okay, New Zealanders, you've missed out on two of the greatest shows ever. Playing Cross Street Festival and Woman. But yeah, okay, no. In that case, just watch out for the course. Look out for the course. The course is on its way. It might be ready by the time this comes out, or might be soon coming. So watch out for the course. Yeah,
Who knows? The drop might be perfectly in time.
it
And
might.
stay tuned for other shows. Just because
Yes.
you miss those doesn't mean you're going to miss others. He's always doing more shows. So please make sure you check him out. And as I said, man, this was awesome. I learned so much just from talking to you about this. So
Awesome.
I'm always fortunate to have people like you on my show.
Well, thanks for having me, man. It's an honor.